This is Unit 8, Lesson 4, and today we're going to study composite functions. We're going to start with a little bit of review, then we're going to talk about composite functions and how they relate to a graph. F of x equals x plus 5, g of x equals 2x, and h of x equals x squared minus 3x minus 4. So they've given us three separate functions in this problem, and they've asked us to find several different answers here. If you look at this one, they've asked us to find f of g of h of negative 2. And remember, when we do these, we're going to start with the innermost function first and work our way out to the outside. So the first thing I'm going to do is find h of negative 2. To find h of negative 2, I'm going to plug negative 2 into the h function. So when I do that, I have negative 2 squared minus 3 times negative 2 minus 4. Then I'm just going to do the math here. You can use a calculator if you need to. Negative 2 squared is 4. That would be a negative 3 times negative 2, which is a 6. So we've got 4 plus 6 is 10. Minus 4 is 6. So h of negative 2 is 6. So I'm going to write down 6. And now we need to continue with everything else that it's asked us to find by just rewriting the rest of the problem down. The second thing they want us to do is find g of 6. So we're going to plug 6 into the g function. Well, if I plug 6 into this function, I get 12. So g of 6 is 12. So now they want me to find f of 12. If I plug 12 into the f function, I'm going to get 12 plus 5 is 17. So when we're doing a composite function like this, we work our way inside out. Whatever we get for the inside function, we plug into the next function, and whatever we get for that, we plug into the next one until we finally get our final answer. In this one, the first thing I'm going to do is find f of 1. So if I plug 1 into the f function, I end up with 6. So then I'm going to have g of h of 6. The next thing I'm going to do is h of 6. So I'm going to plug 6 into the h function. Well, 6 squared is 36. Minus 3 times 6 is 18. So 36 minus 18 is 18. And 18 minus 4 is 14. So if I plug 14 into the 2x, I end up with 28. In the next one, g of 3, I'm going to find the innermost first. So g of 3 is 6. Once I've found the 6, I'm going to find f of 6. If I plug 6 into the f function, I get 11. And the last thing they want me to find is h of 11. Well, 11 squared is 121. Minus 3 times 11 is 33. Minus 4 is 84. In the second screen, they're asking us to find composite functions, and this time they're using a different notation for composite functions. They've given us an f function and a g function, but instead of asking us to find f of g of 3 written this way, they've written it a little differently. This means the same thing. This is also f of g of 3. So for this, I'm going to move from the centermost function listed to the outward function listed. So I'm going to find g of 3 first. So if I plug 3 in for x here, I have a negative 1 times 3 squared plus 1. Well, 3 squared is 9, times negative 1 is negative 9, plus 1 is negative 8. So now I need to find f of negative 8. If I plug negative 8 here, I get 64 minus 24 minus 6, which is 40 minus 6, or 34. For the next one, I'm going to find f of 1 first. If I plug 1 into the f function, I get 1 plus 3 minus 6. 1 plus 3 is 4, and 4 minus 6 is negative 2. The next thing I need to do is find g of that answer, negative 2. So I'm going to plug negative 2 into this function. So that would be negative 1 times negative 2 squared plus 1. And that gives me a 4 times negative 1 is a negative 4, plus 1 is negative 3. Sometimes they're going to ask you to do composite functions without any x values given to you. In other words, you're going to find a function within a function. So for this one, f of g of x, they're asking us to plug the g function into the f function. So that means, since the g function is x plus 4, they want me to take x plus 4 and plug it in for every x in the f function. So I would have 2 times x plus 4 squared plus 4 times x plus 4 minus 1. And then I would just do the math. X plus 4 squared, we have already learned, is x squared plus 8x plus 16. If I then distribute the 2 to that, I would have 2x squared plus 16x plus 32. I'm going to distribute the 4 here, so that gives me a plus 4x plus 16, and I bring down the minus 1. Then the only thing I have left is to add like terms. In the next one, they want us to plug the f function into the g function. So for this one, we're going to plug the f function into the g function. So in the g function, anywhere I have an x, I'm going to replace it with 2x squared plus 4x minus 1. So 2x squared plus 4x minus 1, and then I add the plus 4. So when I add the like terms, I end up with 2x squared plus 4x plus 3. And that would be my final answer. In the next section, they're asking us to use a graph to find values for composite functions. So let's just start by reviewing a little bit. Here it says find f of negative 1. I've distinguished between the f function and the g function here. The f function is the one in red, and the g function is the one in blue. So if they ask us to find f of negative 1, they want us to go to the x value of negative 1. Negative 1 is right here. And then they want us to find what the y value in that f function is at negative 1. Well, that would be this point right here. The y value at that point would be 2. So f of negative 1 is equal to 2. For g of 2, they want us to go to the x value of 2, and then they want us to travel to the blue function, the g of x function, to figure out what its y value is when x is 2. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So g of 2 is 4. Similarly to what we did here, we're going to kind of combine what we did earlier in this section with this that we did in another chapter. So in this one, they're asking us to find f of g of negative 1. Well, g of negative 1 is the y value when x is negative 1 on the g function. So we get at negative 1 on the g function, that is at 1. So g of negative 1 is 1. So the next thing we have to find is f of 1. So we go to the x value of 1 and then travel up to the f function at 1. The f function at 1 has a y value at 4. So f of g of negative 1 will be 4. Here, they've used the g of f of negative 1 other notation for that. It's very similar. We're going to find f of negative 1 first. So at my negative 1 value, the f function is 2. So then we need to find g of 2. So at the x value of 2, the g function is at 4. So g of f of negative 1 is 4. So in this one, they want us to find f of negative 4 first. So I'm going to go to the x value of negative 4 and then go up to the f function. So it looks like f of negative 4 is at 5. So f of negative 4 is 5. So the next thing we need to find is g of 5. Well, g of 5, we're going to go to the x value of 5 and then travel to the g function, which gives us a y value of 1. So the answer to this one is 1. G of f of negative 4 is 1. For the last one here, g of 8, they want f of g of 8, so we're going to find g of 8 first. I'm going to go to the x value of 8, which is right here, and I'm going to travel down to the g function. That y value on the g function is at negative 8. So g of negative 8, or g of 8 is negative 8. So now we need to find f of negative 8. So I'm going to travel to the x value of negative 8 and go up to the f function. That is at 9. So f of negative 8 is 9. So the answer to this problem, f of g of 8, is equal to 9. Here's another graph with some composite functions that I want you to find. So go through, see if you can find the answers to these composite functions, and then we'll go over them in a few minutes. So pause the video and try these on your own. So I have the answers here. For the first one, g of 0, if we go to the 0 and go down to the g function, that's at -1. So then we need f of -1, which gives us a 2. F of 0, if we go to the f function at the x value of 0, we get 0. And then so g of 0 is at -1. So g of f of 0 is -1. G of -5, if we go to the -5 and travel up to the g function, we get 4. So f of 4 would give us a -8. G of f of -3, f of -3, we go to the x value of -3 and go down to the f function, that's at -2. Then we travel to -2 on the x and go down to the g function, which is at -5. So g of f of -3 is -5.